Hey everybody, what's going on? I'm DJ Sixsmith. You're watching The Sit Down. Got a brand new book to talk about. Liz Plank's here to talk about it. For the Love of Men.
There it
Certainly
is.
A catchy headline, and it's a great one so far. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. How are you? Thanks
I'm
for
good.
having me.
First of all, show off the shirt.
Yes.
Let boys cry.
Yes, designed this shirt.
Oh, this is your own shirt.
It
here.
is, yes. So my friend Lahren did the actual design, but I wanted to create a shirt. I wanted to wear my message, and so I actually created this shirt before the book came out.
Cool.
I don't want to make boys cry. I want to let boys cry. Some people get a
Let them have the
little,
runway to cry.
Yes. Don't cry if you don't want to. Cry if you want to. That's it. That's the message.
But
yeah, some people, but even that is seen a little bit as controversial.
Sure.
Like I've had people respond to it negatively, and I think that's interesting, right?
Yeah, it says a lot about the person.
Exactly, and about the conversation, right, around
Absolutely.
masculinity, that it's viewed as an attack to just let men be different from the way that we have always let them be.
And that's okay to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
So what piqued your interest in all this? Because I know you did your master's overseas in gender studies.
Yeah.
So how did you get into this whole thing, and what's the journey been like?
Yeah, so it's been a really interesting personal journey and also a professional one. I started writing this book because I realized that these, amazing rooms that I was in, filled with women, to talk about gender equality, whether it was in academic settings or when I moved to New York and I worked in women's media, they were great. We were having amazing conversations. We were coming up with amazing solutions, but half of us were not to be seen. And so I started wondering, where are the men and how can we bring them into this conversation?
Yeah.
Because a lot of these problems are actually, not necessarily caused by women. And if we could have everyone in the room, it'd be much more productive. And then I started talking to men, and as a reporter, you go out on a reporting journey, and the stories that I heard were very different from what I expected, right? So often when we have a conversation around masculinity and just a conversation about men, right?
Yeah.
When we're like, men need to do this, right? Men need to do this differently. For who? For women, right? Women, you're hurting us in all these different ways. We need you to be different for us. And I think that that's a valid conversation to have. Everyone should have that conversation if they want to. I started realizing that we were assuming that men were bad instead of assuming that men were good. We were assuming that masculinity was inherently a problem instead of assuming that masculinity could be the solution. And that a lot of men who were hurting women, or a lot of men who were doing, participating in these stereotypical male behaviors that are, not helpful for our society, a lot of the men didn't want to participate in those behaviors, right? Or they had participated in them because they'd been hurt by that system. That system is a system in which they were raised and in which they didn't necessarily feel super excited about. And I started really following men's pain, which is what came up in every interview that I had with men, is that they were not happy and go lucky and enjoying all this male privilege, or they were, but there was a lot of pain. And so I realized we're on different sides of a fight, when in fact we could all be on the same side. It'd be a much better party to attend, and we could come up with better solutions.
And just doing the work together is really such an important thing.
100%.
Yeah, we need to.
Yes, and there's this, we live in a super individualist society, right? We live in this postmodern society where, if you get something, that means something is taken away from me. And that if we talk about you, that means we're not talking about me. When it's like, I would love for us to talk about men. I would love for men to talk about masculinity. And in a way, for men to talk about their masculinity, have a curiosity about it, is the best thing that you can do for me. And,
Absolutely.
And because we truly are all connected. We're all, everyone who's a woman knows a man. Every man who's a man knows a woman, has come out of a woman, right? We're all part of this ecosystem together, and we have to stop believing in the idea that we're on separate teams.
No, we're definitely not.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting because a lot of men that I know, me in particular, spend a ton of time on career and thinking critically about how to advance in your career, but never really investing in the time in yourself. So like you said, like unpacking pain from the past, that's not something that's really high on the priority list.
No.
So what was it like talking to these men about their pain, and how fascinating was it to hear them go into great length about it when you didn't feel like you had that in your life at all before? Yeah,
I think what you just said is so important, right? That we value men for the work that they do, primarily, right?
Yep.
So if you talk about men, about what it means to be a man, very often work will be the first thing that comes up. Success, provider, right? That you're the breadwinner, or a breadwinner. And so there's that focus on that, and that's how men feel useful, right? It's not just, I think sometimes we dismiss men who are holding on to being a breadwinner, or men who feel threatened if they're not the main provider in their family. And I think that we need to examine that, and it comes out in a lot of negative behaviors. So men who make less money than their wives cheat more on their wives, right? There are like things that if we don't have this conversation, it can come out in negative behaviors that are not okay. But I think that we need to give value and listen and hear that discomfort and that pain of not being able to meet society's expectations, right? And talk about how that ideal that you've been taught from previous generations of men, and also that pressure that you probably have from the women in your lives too, to be this provider, that's a lot for you to shoulder. And actually, the people in your life, would benefit much more if you were comfortable with who you are in the world, separate from all those things. Right. It's not just, again, individualistic, it's very capitalistic, right? That your value in the world has a number, right? Has a dollar sign next to it, and if you are not able to do that, then you don't exist, or you don't matter.